The brakes felt spongy yesterday. I found my death sentence under the truck. 6 a.m., crawling under my pickup with coffee steaming nearby. Oil-stained fingers trace the brake line and hit air, clean slice through reinforced steel. Hydraulic fluid drips onto my face like blood, metallic taste of terror flooding my mouth as I realize someone tried to murder me over parking violations. 3 months later, Karen Pemberton, former HOA queen, is sobbing on her knees in my driveway at 2 a.m. Designer suit torn and muddy, broken fingernails bleeding as she desperately tapes together the $50,000 business contract she shredded. The woman who drove out 17 families is now begging me not to press charges. Please, I'll do anything. I didn't mean. Too late, Karen. See, while she was busy trying to kill me, I discovered her mansion sits 12 feet on my property. Her son recorded her confessing to attempted murder, and her 8-year embezzlement scheme, all documented. Karen cut my brake lines to silence me. Instead, she just signed her own eviction notice. What would you do if your HOA president tried to murder you? Drop your wildest neighbor horror story below. Let me back up to the beginning. March 15th, moving day from hell. I'm Marcus Sullivan, 45, owner of Sullivan HVAC Solutions, and apparently the world's most optimistic divorced dad. Just survived a marriage that ended with lawyers circling like vultures, liquidated everything I owned, and bet my life savings on a fresh start in Willowbrook Estates. The house was perfect 3-bedroom ranch with a detached garage that smelled like motor oil and possibility. My 16-year-old daughter Sophia actually smiled when she saw her new room, first genuine happiness I'd witnessed since the custody battles began. The sound of her laughter echoing through empty hallways felt like winning the lottery. I'm former Army Corps of Engineers, 12 years building bridges in places most people can't pronounce. Military training drills one thing into your skull: document everything, measure twice, cut once, and never trust authority without verification. That paranoid attention to detail would literally save my life. Willowbrook Estates looked like suburban paradise, 127 homes built when Nixon was president, where retirees with golf course lawns coexist with working families whose kids leave bicycles in driveways. The whole neighborhood carried the scent of fresh-cut grass mixed with charcoal smoke from weekend cookouts. Pure American dream material. HOA dues ran $180 monthly for landscaping and community standards. Seemed reasonable for a peaceful life. Day 3 after moving in, I'm unloading my work truck, a perfectly normal Ford F-250 with Sullivan HVAC on the doors, when I hear the sound of impending doom. Click-clack, click-clack. High heels hitting concrete like a metronome counting down to disaster. Mr. Sullivan, Karen Pemberton materialized like a bureaucratic nightmare. Imagine a real estate agent who studied customer service at the Hitler Youth Summer Camp. Perfectly manicured everything, designer BMW that probably cost more than my house down payment, and a clipboard welded to her right hand like Captain Hook's prosthetic. We need to discuss your property improvements. I'm surrounded by boxes labeled kitchen junk and Sophia's stuffed animals. What improvements? Ma'am, I moved in 72 hours ago. Haven't even found my coffee maker yet. Karen's smile could freeze antifreeze. Your commercial vehicle violates Section 12.3 of our covenants. Commercial vehicles are strictly prohibited in residential driveways. That night, fueled by gas station coffee and growing paranoia, I spread every HOA document across my kitchen table like a detective solving murders. Section 12.3 didn't exist. The covenant only went to Section 1.7, which covered garbage can colors. Here's where Karen showed her evil genius. She wasn't making random rules. She was testing my spine. Would I crumble like her previous victims, or fight back and give her an excuse to escalate? Week 2, a $75 fine materialized in my mailbox like a parking ticket from Satan himself. Week 3, legal action will be pursued immediately. Time to attend my first HOA meeting. The community center reeked of industrial disinfectant and shattered dreams. 12 people showed up from 127 homes. Karen ran that meeting like Stalin conducting a purge trial, dismissing my questions with the authority of someone who'd never been challenged. I've been doing this longer than you, Mr. Sullivan. Much longer. The threat in her voice made the room's fluorescent lights seem dimmer. After the meeting, I channeled my inner investigator, Public records, county databases, neighborhood gossip networks. The pattern emerged like bloodstains under UV light. 17 families evacuated in 3 years, always minorities, single parents, or anyone Karen deemed unfit for her perfect neighborhood. A Hispanic contractor whose English carried an accent. A single mom whose autistic son made noise during his backyard therapy sessions. An elderly black veteran whose disability pension couldn't maintain a country club lawn. Each family systematically destroyed through escalating harassment until they fled. Sitting in my workshop at 2 a.m., surrounded by the metallic smell of tools and the weight of realization, the truth hit me like a sledgehammer. I wasn't just the new neighbor. I was Karen Pemberton's next target. Game on, lady. Week 4 brought Karen's nuclear option, the surprise inspection blitz. I'm 40 miles away installing a commercial unit when my phone erupts like a terrorist attack. Dad, there's people crawling all over our house. Some witch with a clipboard is photographing everything. She's laughing while she writes stuff down. I broke every traffic law getting home, tires screeching into my driveway where Karen stood with some poor city employee who looked like he'd rather be getting root canal surgery. The sound of his pen scratching violation forms mixed with Karen's satisfied giggling like nails on a chalkboard dipped in poison. Mr. Sullivan, routine compliance inspection. Karen's smile could have curdled fresh milk. This is Officer Bradley from Code Enforcement. Turns out Karen and Bradley are golf buddies. What are the fucking odds? Their violation masterpieces included unauthorized structure, my garden shed that appeared on the original 1987 property survey. Improper drainage, the natural slope existing since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Unapproved landscaping, flower beds older than my daughter. Total extortion, $450. Sophia later described Karen's pen clicking like a bomb timer. Each click meant more money, Dad. She was enjoying it. Time for counterattack. My army training screamed one thing. Document everything. Assume everyone's lying. Trust nobody completely. I installed 4 security cameras with night vision every angle covered, audio recording, cloud backup. If Karen breathed wrong on my property, I'd have evidence. Then I researched her inspection. Took me 3 hours of digging through county ordinances to realize something beautiful. Karen had fucked up royally. You can't surprise inspect private property without 48-hour written notice, proper authorization, and legitimate probable cause. What she'd done was criminal trespass disguised as bureaucracy. I'd read about HOA harassment tactics in my divorce lawyer's office. He kept a whole bookshelf of property law books because half his clients got screwed by petty tyrants like Karen. The golden rule: surprise inspections are illegal harassment, period. Karen's response came swift and vicious. Total social warfare. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded overnight with anonymous posts about declining property values and aggressive newcomers disrupting community harmony. The Whisper campaign activated like Cold War espionage. Mrs. Henderson, who'd brought welcome cookies, suddenly developed acute blindness whenever I appeared. 3 neighbors stopped waving. 2 crossed streets to avoid contamination by my presence. But Karen made one beautiful mistake. She underestimated my allies. Walter Chen materialized at my door one evening carrying a folder thick enough to stop bullets. 78 years old, Korean War veteran, and Karen's longest surviving target. Son, she tried this identical bullshit on my family in 1992. His weathered hands trembled with rage, not age. Karen's been running this con for 3 decades. Walter had survived because his son was a lawyer. He documented everything: fraudulent violations, harassment patterns, financial irregularities. The evidence was damning and beautiful. She destroyed the Ramirez family with noise complaints about their baby crying, hit the Johnsons with architectural violations for installing a wheelchair ramp. Always the same playbook. Walter's records revealed Karen's genius. She never left fingerprints. Always worked through concerned neighbors and city officials she'd bought with golf games and political donations. But I had something Walter didn't in 1992, modern technology and an engineer's obsession with numbers. As a homeowner, I had legal right to audit HOA finances. What I discovered made my calculator smoke from overuse. Karen had been embezzling our dues for years, funding her harassment campaigns with our own money. $1,200, landscaping enhancement, no visible improvements anywhere. Multiple consulting fees to companies existing only in Karen's imagination. Administrative expenses requiring $300 country club dinners because apparently harassment makes you hungry. 3 years of records revealed $23,000 in theft. Every fake violation, every fraudulent inspection, every psychological torture session financed with money stolen from her victims. I'd learned about financial fraud during my divorce when my ex-wife tried hiding assets. The pattern was identical: fake expenses, phantom vendors, inflated administrative costs. Karen was running a textbook embezzlement scheme. The next HOA meeting felt like entering enemy territory. Same community center reeking of industrial disinfectant and broken dreams, but this time I brought nuclear weapons. Karen attempted her usual agenda control, but I stood during old business and detonated my bomb. I'd like to discuss $23,000 in unexplained HOA expenditures over 3 years. Silence. Complete, beautiful silence except for that squeaky ceiling fan and the sound of 12 homeowners realizing they'd been robbed. Karen's face cycled through surprise, rage, and calculation like a slot machine hitting jackpot. If you don't like our financial management, Mr. Sullivan, you can always move somewhere more suitable to your standards. Wrong answer, sweetheart. Actually, I'm not going anywhere, but you might want to lawyer up. A really, really good one. For the first time in 8 years, someone had publicly challenged the Queen. Other residents looked like hostages, glimpsing rescue helicopters on the horizon. The gloves were officially off. Karen's desperation unleashed her inner Photoshop psychopath. Week 6 brought fabricated evidence that would make dictators jealous. Monday morning, reviewing security footage with my first cup of coffee, I spot Karen creeping around my property at 3 a.m. like some suburban ninja. Designer heels clicking on concrete, professional camera equipment, and what looked like a mobile counterfeiting operation running out of her BMW's back seat. By Tuesday, mysterious photos materialized in my mailbox showing violations that existed only in Karen's deranged imagination. Garden hose improperly stored when I'd coiled it military perfect the night before. Trash cans blocking pedestrian access when they sat 3 feet from the curb. The shadows were wrong, the lighting impossible, and one photo included a McDonald's cup that definitely wasn't mine unless I'd started sleep-eating Big Macs. But Karen wasn't done playing digital dictator. She'd researched my client list through public HVAC permits, impressive detective work for a suburban terrorist, and launched her business assassination campaign. Wednesday morning, my phone rings with the sound of financial doom. Mr. Sullivan, Janet from Riverside Medical Center, we're canceling your maintenance contract immediately. My stomach dropped to my work boots. Why? We received reports you're under investigation for code violations and improper business practices. We can't risk association with unreliable contractors. 2 more calls that day. Same script, same devastation. 15 grand in revenue evaporated because Karen had weaponized my success against me. The taste of panic is metallic and bitter, like licking a car battery while your life crumbles. Time for professional paranoia. I hired Tommy Rodriguez, retired detective who'd spent 30 years catching people who thought they were clever. Cost $200 daily, but Tommy understood predators. Your neighbor's got serious issues, Tommy reported after 3 days of surveillance. Drinks alone every night after 7, husband avoids home like it's radioactive, and she's been documenting everyone who visits your house. Tommy's intel revealed Rick Pemberton practically lived at his downtown office. Marriage problems, possible affairs, definitely escaping his psychotic wife. Karen was isolated, desperate, and escalating toward violence. But Tommy caught Karen's counterfeiting operation on film. Professional camera, laptop with editing software, her face clearly visible, manufacturing evidence under streetlights like some kind of suburban Breaking Bad episode. During my divorce, I'd learned about digital forensics. From my attorney, photos leave metadata fingerprints that reveal tampering. Every doctored image Karen created was actually building my criminal case against her. She was basically creating her own arrest warrant, one fake photo at a time. Week 8 brought Karen's masterpiece, attempted murder disguised as vehicle maintenance. Friday morning, loading tools for a client call, my truck felt wrong. Brakes spongy, steering loose, something fundamentally dangerous about a vehicle that had run perfectly for 8 years. The smell of hydraulic fluid hit my nose like a death warning. I canceled the job and spent 2 hours under my truck with a creeper and flashlight. What I found made my blood pressure spike to stroke levels. Brake lines severed with surgical precision. Not wear, not accident, deliberate sabotage with professional tools. Hydraulic fluid pooled on concrete like evidence of Karen's murderous intent. One emergency stop on Highway 85, and I'd have been another traffic fatality statistic. Karen's arrogance created her own downfall. My main security cameras malfunctioned that exact night, too convenient for coincidence. But I'd installed a backup system she didn't know about, hidden in Walter's oak tree and activated by motion sensors. No footage of actual sabotage, but plenty of Karen's BMW lurking outside at 2 a.m. with someone inside timing their attack like a military operation. Next morning brought unexpected salvation. Daniel Pemberton, Karen's 19-year-old son, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 weeks. "Mr. Sullivan, I need to talk privately. It's about my mom." Kid's hands shook like autumn leaves. Dark circles under his eyes, the body language of someone drowning in family secrets. She's completely lost it. Last night she talked about permanently solving the Marcus Sullivan problem. I think she's planning to hurt you seriously. Daniel revealed Karen had been intercepting my mail federal crime copying business documents and maintaining surveillance files on my family that included Sophia's school schedule and my client locations. This isn't HOA harassment anymore. It's stalking with murderous intent. That evening, I filed police reports for attempted murder, mail theft, business sabotage, and criminal stalking. Detective Sarah Wilson took everything seriously because I had evidence video, photos, documentation, witness testimony. "Mr. Sullivan, this has moved beyond neighborhood disputes into felony territory. We're investigating attempted murder, federal mail crimes, and organized harassment. Document everything and call immediately if she escalates." I remembered something my divorce lawyer taught me. Harassment always escalates in predictable patterns: financial attacks, reputation destruction, physical threats, then violence. Karen was following the playbook perfectly. Meanwhile, Walter organized neighborhood resistance meetings. 5 families shared similar horror stories, revealing Karen's 3-decade reign of terror funded by embezzled HOA money. The community was waking up. But Karen had one more card to play. Week 10 brought Karen's scorched earth business strategy: insurance terrorism that would make war criminals take notes. I'm elbow deep in a hospital boiler room when my phone rings with the sound of financial death. "Mr. Sullivan? Linda from Mutual Insurance. We're canceling your policy effective immediately." My wrench clanged to the floor like a funeral bell. Based on what? Multiple safety violations, customer complaints, and reports of negligent practices. We can't insure high-risk contractors. Karen had weaponized bureaucracy itself. Fake customer complaints, fabricated safety violations, forged incident reports. A masterpiece of administrative terrorism that threatened 15 years of business reputation. The metallic taste of panic mixed with the smell of industrial coolant as I realized she was systematically destroying my livelihood one phone call at a time. Simultaneously, she carpet-bombed my contractor licenses with bogus complaints to the state board, professional misconduct, safety violations, customer fraud, enough paperwork to kill a forest and my career simultaneously. But Karen's arrogance birthed her biggest fuck-up yet. Wednesday night, while I'm watching Sophia star in Our Town at School Kid, absolutely nailed Emily Webb's death scene. My phone buzzes with Daniel's panicked text. "She's in your workshop right now with bolt cutters and a camera. I tried stopping her, but she's completely psychotic." I stayed for Sophia's curtain call because she deserved that moment, but my hands shook through every standing ovation knowing Karen was ransacking my business 60 feet from where my daughter slept. Hidden cameras captured Karen's entire criminal masterpiece in gorgeous 4K resolution. Her face clearly visible as she rifled through client contracts, photographed proprietary HVAC designs, and stuffed business insurance documents into a canvas bag, like some kind of suburban cat burglar, completely oblivious to her starring role in Felony Conviction, the home movie. The footage revealed Karen's complete enterprise. She wasn't just stealing, she was photographing client information for competitors, sabotaging HVAC equipment to create safety hazards, and manufacturing evidence for her insurance fraud campaign. My Army intelligence training taught me one golden rule: let criminals provide their own evidence while you document everything. Karen was basically writing her own arrest warrant in real time. Thursday morning, Detective Wilson examined my workshop with the glee of someone who loves catching stupid criminals. Breaking and entering, business sabotage, theft of proprietary information, insurance fraud. She's looking at federal charges. This footage is prosecutor porn. But Wilson warned me Karen had entered her most dangerous phase. Cornered perpetrators often escalate to violence. She's lost rational thinking and moved into pure survival mode. Watch your back. Karen's panic was neighborhood entertainment. Thursday evening, smoke billowed from her backyard as she burned documents in her fire pit like some suburban Nixon destroying Watergate evidence. The acrid smell of burning contracts and desperation carried on evening air while neighbors gathered to watch the show. Mrs. Henderson, finally freed from years of intimidation, reported the suspicious burning to authorities. Turns out backyard document destruction violates fire ordinances and federal evidence tampering laws. Karen was literally creating additional charges against herself while providing dinner theater for the block. Friday brought Daniel's nuclear option, crystal clear audio of Mommy Dearest confessing everything. His hands trembled as he played the recording, tears streaming down his 19-year-old face that had aged decades in weeks. Karen's wine-slurred voice filled my kitchen like poison gas. I cut his brake lines, destroyed his business contracts, stole everything I could find, and I'll do whatever necessary to eliminate him permanently. This neighborhood doesn't need his kind contaminating our property values. Daniel, why are you recording this? Because someone needs evidence when they find his body. The kid looked like he'd been carrying the weight of his mother's crimes for months. I can't let her murder innocent people. She's my mom, but she's become a monster who needs to be stopped. Single-party consent state meant the recording was completely admissible. Prosecutors now had Karen's own voice confessing to attempted murder, business sabotage, theft, and premeditated violence. Weekend brought Walter's emergency HOA meeting. 47 homeowners packed the community center, largest turnout since the neighborhood's founding. The air buzzed with suppressed rage, finally finding voice after years of terrorized silence. I presented the evidence buffet: security footage, financial fraud documentation, criminal activity patterns, and Daniel's confession recording. When Karen's voice played through speakers admitting attempted murder, the room fell silent except for shocked gasps and angry murmuring. Motion to remove Karen from HOA board, 42-5. Only her most delusional allies supported keeping an attempted murderer in power. Karen tried controlling the meeting from the back row, but her dictatorship had crumbled. When she stood to speak, 40-plus residents shouted her down with years of bottled fury. "Shut up, Karen, we're done with your psychotic bullshit." The legal noose was tightening. Criminal charges pending, civil lawsuits filed, professional destruction imminent, community support annihilated. Karen faced minimum 5 years prison plus complete financial ruin. But desperate animals with nothing left are deadliest of all. Sometimes the universe delivers justice with a surveyor's measuring tape and absolutely perfect timing. Week 12. My attorney insisted on a professional property survey for legal defense. Standard procedure when dealing with harassment claims, he explained, establishes clear boundaries and prevents future disputes. I hired precision land surveying 3 guys with equipment that cost more than my truck and treated property lines like religious scripture. $1,200 seemed like cheap insurance against Karen's escalating psychosis. Tuesday morning, lead surveyor Jake Martinez knocked on my door wearing the expression of someone who'd just discovered King Tut's tomb. Behind him, his crew was packing equipment with unusual enthusiasm. "Mr. Sullivan, we need to discuss our findings immediately. You're going to want whiskey for this conversation." Jake spread survey maps across my kitchen table like treasure charts. Red lines marked official property boundaries, blue lines showed existing structures. Where Karen's pretentious stone driveway met my land, those lines told the most beautiful story of criminal stupidity ever documented. Your neighbor's driveway extends 12 feet onto your property. Been there approximately 6 years based on satellite imagery analysis. 12 glorious feet of theft. Karen had stolen 12 feet of my land to build her designer driveway, complete with imported stone pavers and decorative lighting that probably cost more than most people's cars. The morning coffee suddenly tasted like victory. The encroachment represents $8,000 in stolen real estate plus improvement values built on your land without permission or compensation. But Jake's next revelation was pure prosecutorial pornography. County records show Mrs. Pemberton absolutely knew about boundary violations when she built this monstrosity. Previous owner Harold Peterson filed multiple complaints that were mysteriously withdrawn after she threatened him with legal action. Karen hadn't accidentally encroached. She'd deliberately stolen my property while terrorizing the previous owner into silence. Harold Peterson, 78 years old and recently widowed, had been too frightened and financially vulnerable to fight Karen's systematic intimidation campaign. Harold filed 3 official complaints between 2018 and 2020, all withdrawn after Karen claimed his complaints were frivolous and threatened counter lawsuits for harassment. The pattern crystallized like frozen breath on winter air. Karen identified vulnerable targets, stole whatever she wanted, then weaponized the legal system to silence victims through fear and financial pressure. I wasn't her first victim, just the first one dumb enough to punch back. Jake continued with barely contained glee. Adverse possession requires 20+ years in this state. 6 years means she's trespassing with improvements that legally belong to you. She must remove everything at her expense or compensate you fair market value. Karen's relocation costs would hit $35,000 minimum. Her property had no alternative access without massive excavation and utility reconstruction. She was essentially trapped by her own greed, a mouse in a maze of her own criminal construction. But the legal implications were even more devastating. As a licensed real estate agent, Karen had professional obligations to disclose property encroachments to all parties. She'd concealed her theft from county officials, violated professional ethics, and committed textbook real estate fraud while representing other clients. Her license requires disclosure of any boundary issues affecting neighborhood transactions. She's been covering up her own crime while taking commissions from unsuspecting buyers and sellers, professional misconduct that triggers automatic criminal referral. Sitting in my kitchen, surrounded by survey evidence and the lingering aroma of Jake's celebratory cigar smoke, I finally understood Karen's complete psychological profile. She hadn't targeted me for personal reasons. I was collateral damage in a criminal cover-up operation. Every violation, every fine, every harassment campaign was designed to drive me away before I discovered her land theft. Karen was protecting a 6-year crime spree disguised as neighborhood standards enforcement. The power dynamic had flipped completely. I held Karen's entire future criminal prosecution, professional destruction, financial ruin, and public humiliation in a manila folder marked Survey Results. Karen had spent months trying to destroy me while sitting on evidence that would annihilate her completely. Game over, bitch. Time to assemble my legal dream team and turn Karen's nightmare into reality. First call went to Patricia Chen, no relation to Walter, just the best property attorney in the county and someone who'd built a career destroying HOA bullies. Her law office smelled like leather-bound justice and expensive coffee, the kind of place where Karen's type got professionally eviscerated. Mr. Sullivan, this is beautiful work. Property encroachment, professional misconduct, criminal fraud. It's like Christmas morning for property lawyers. Patricia's eyes lit up like a kid seeing presents. We'll pursue treble damages, attorney fees, and punitive compensation. Your neighbor just handed us a blank check. Second call. Criminal defense attorney Mike Rodriguez, Tommy's brother and someone who specialized in protecting victims from escalating harassment. Marcus, you're not just defending anymore, you're prosecuting. We'll coordinate with the DA to ensure Karen faces maximum consequences. Third call. Business litigation specialist Sarah Kim, who'd built her reputation recovering damages from corporate sabotage. Your business losses are completely recoverable. Insurance fraud, commercial interference, reputation damage. We're looking at significant compensation plus punitive awards. The legal fees would normally bankrupt a small business owner, but Patricia explained something beautiful about contingency arrangements. We get paid when you win, and with this evidence, we're going to win spectacularly. My divorce experience taught me that specialized attorneys cost more initially, but save money long-term by winning decisively instead of dragging cases through endless appeals and delays. Next step, digital forensics expert James Park, who preserved all electronic evidence with the precision of someone handling nuclear weapons. Your neighbor's digital fingerprints are everywhere. Fabricated photos, fraudulent emails, criminal communications. This evidence will survive any challenge. While attorneys organized legal warfare, Walter mobilized neighborhood support, like a retired general commanding troops. 23 families signed formal complaints supporting my case, each one documenting Karen's systematic harassment patterns spanning decades. She destroyed the Martinez family with noise complaints about their baby, hit the Washingtons with architectural violations for their wheelchair ramp. Always the same playbook, Walter explained, spreading signed affidavits across his dining table like battle plans. Local investigative reporter Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News caught wind of the story through neighborhood sources. HOA corruption, attempted murder, property theft. This has everything viewers love. David versus Goliath with clear documentation. Media attention would prevent Karen from retaliating and protect witnesses from intimidation. HOA bullies thrive in darkness but wither under public scrutiny like vampires facing sunlight. The financial strategy crystallized beautifully. Business insurance covered harassment-related losses under my commercial liability policy, something I'd learned about during contractor training courses. Karen's victims often recovered damages through multiple channels: criminal restitution, civil judgments, and insurance claims. Property encroachment lawsuits sought $50,000 in damages plus attorney fees. Karen's house carried $180,000 equity according to county records, enough to cover complete compensation with money left over for her prison commissary account. But the technical preparations revealed even more devastating ammunition. Professional survey expansion covered the entire neighborhood, discovering Karen had encroached on 4 different properties over 6 years. Total stolen land value, $31,000, creating additional victims and criminal counts. Engineering assessment of Karen's driveway removal showed her construction violated 3 building codes and created neighborhood drainage problems. Environmental impact study revealed her illegal improvements caused flooding in 2 neighboring basements during heavy rains. She built her vanity project without permits, proper drainage, or regard for neighboring properties, explained city engineer Tom Bradley. Removal will require excavation, utility relocation, and environmental remediation. Meanwhile, I coordinated with multiple agencies building their own cases. District Attorney's Office pursued criminal charges, State Licensing Board investigated professional violations, IRS examined potential tax fraud from unreported embezzlement income, and County Planning reviewed all Karen's past projects for additional violations. Each agency built upon others' evidence in a coordinated legal assault that would make military strategists proud. Karen wasn't facing one opponent. She was surrounded by an army of prosecutors, investigators, and angry neighbors with decades of suppressed grievances. Psychological consultant Dr. Amanda Foster explained Karen's behavioral patterns to help predict her next moves. Classic narcissistic personality with control obsessions and racial prejudices. She targets victims she perceives as vulnerable or different. When cornered, expect desperate measures including potential violence. Security preparations included upgraded monitoring systems, protective orders filed preemptively, and Sophia receiving self-defense training plus emergency protocols. Business operations moved to secure locations until Karen was neutralized. The community education campaign launched with HOA reform workshops, legal rights seminars, and corruption prevention training. We weren't just defeating Karen, we were immunizing the neighborhood against future tyranny. Neighborhood meetings filled community centers with families sharing Karen stories they'd been afraid to tell for years. The smell of fresh printed educational flyers mixed with the sound of people reclaiming their voices after decades of intimidation. "This isn't just about Marcus anymore," Walter announced to a packed room. "This is about preventing Karen from ever terrorizing families again." By week 14, the legal machine was operational and Karen was completely surrounded. Criminal charges pending, civil lawsuits filed, professional destruction imminent, and community support solidified. All that remained was lighting the fuse and watching Karen's empire explode. Karen's desperation reached biblical proportions when she realized her world was crumbling faster than a house of cards in a tornado. Week 14 brought her most pathetic move yet: attempted bribery with the subtlety of a mob movie. I'm replacing an air handler at the community center when Karen appears like a bad omen, clutching a manila envelope thick enough to choke a horse. "Mr. Sullivan, perhaps we can reach a reasonable settlement." Her voice carried the fake sweetness of artificial vanilla mixed with cyanide. 5,000 cash to forget this unfortunate misunderstanding. The prosecutor's office had prepared me for this moment. I was wearing a wire smaller than a postage stamp, recording every word while Karen counted out crisp hundreds like some kind of suburban drug dealer. "I understand property lines can be confusing. Mistakes happen. This covers any inconvenience you've experienced. What about the brake lines you cut, Karen? Her hand froze mid-count. I don't know what you mean. The business contracts you destroyed? The clients you contacted with lies about my company? Sometimes neighbors have disagreements. The important thing is moving forward constructively. Karen was admitting to property theft while simultaneously trying to buy my silence about attempted murder. The recording device captured every incriminating word as she essentially confessed to criminal conspiracy while offering witness tampering compensation. But Karen wasn't finished destroying herself. She'd hired a private investigator, some bottom feeder who specialized in divorce cases and insurance fraud, to excavate dirt on my personal life. The guy looked like he'd flunked out of mall security training and smelled like cigarettes in desperation. Within days, fabricated online reviews appeared, destroying my business reputation. One-star ratings claiming I'd damaged property, overcharged customers, and provided unsafe installations. Karen had weaponized the internet like some kind of digital terrorist. Simultaneously, she contacted my ex-wife Jennifer, trying to drag her into the harassment campaign. Your former husband is causing serious problems in our neighborhood. Perhaps you could speak with him about appropriate behavior. Jennifer, to her credit, called me immediately. Marcus, some crazy woman is trying to involve me in whatever suburban drama you've stumbled into. She sounds completely unhinged. Karen's attempts to recruit allies kept backfiring spectacularly. Every move revealed her increasing desperation and criminal intent while providing additional evidence for prosecutors. Meanwhile, I maintained strategic silence like a chess master watching his opponent demolish her own position. Every bribery attempt was recorded and delivered to authorities. Counter-surveillance revealed Karen's PI activities were mostly photographing me mowing the lawn and taking out garbage, hardly criminal behavior. The beauty of letting enemies destroy themselves is they always escalate beyond rational limits when nobody fights back. Karen interpreted my silence as weakness rather than rope I was providing for her own hanging. Week 15 brought Karen's alliance-building phase with the 3 remaining HOA board loyalists. They attempted calling an emergency meeting to address neighborhood disruption caused by frivolous lawsuits and harassment of board members. The meeting notice was legally invalid, improper timing, insufficient notification, unclear agenda items. But more importantly, my attorney had filed injunctions preventing any HOA actions while criminal investigation was pending. Karen's desperate attempt to use official channels backfired when 47 homeowners showed up demanding her immediate removal. What she'd intended as a kangaroo court became a public lynching of her remaining credibility. Karen Pemberton has terrorized this neighborhood for 8 years, shouted Mrs. Rodriguez, whose family had been Karen's victims in 2019. We demand accountability for her crimes. The attempted meeting dissolved into community therapy session as families shared horror stories they'd suppressed for years. Karen sat in the front row watching her legacy crumble, while residents recounted systematic harassment, financial fraud, and psychological torture. But Karen's most destructive escalation was yet to come. Desperate to plant evidence supporting her harassment claims, she attempted a second break into my workshop while I was installing equipment at the hospital. This time, she brought bolt cutters, a digital camera, and what appeared to be illegal drugs, probably planning to photograph planted evidence that would destroy my reputation and credibility. Unfortunately for Karen, my upgraded security system included motion-activated alarms connected directly to police dispatch. Officers arrived while she was literally inside my workshop with bolt cutters and a bag of what looked suspiciously like cocaine. Ma'am, put down the tools and step away from the filing cabinet. The arrest was captured in glorious high-definition video. Karen's face cycling through surprise, rage, and terror as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The sound of metal against bone seemed to echo her complete defeat. Cold steel handcuffs biting into Karen's wrists while she sobbed about misunderstandings and protecting community standards. The woman who'd terrorized 17 families was finally experiencing consequences for her actions. Detective Wilson's voice carried grim satisfaction. Karen Pemberton, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute, and violation of restraining orders. Karen's empire wasn't just crumbling, it was exploding in spectacular fashion while the entire neighborhood watched justice finally arrive. Karen's final weeks of freedom resembled a psychological thriller directed by someone who'd clearly lost their fucking mind. Week 16 brought her masterpiece of stupidity. Multiple false police reports filed with the dedication of someone applying for a PhD in self-destruction. Every morning brought new emergency calls reporting imaginary crimes I'd supposedly committed. 911, what's your emergency? Marcus Sullivan is threatening me with a chainsaw in his driveway. Meanwhile, I'm 60 miles away installing commercial refrigeration units, completely unaware Karen was creating felony charges against herself faster than a machine gun fires bullets. Tuesday, he's stalking my house with binoculars. I was replacing ductwork at the hospital. Wednesday, loud music and profanity at 3 a.m. I was asleep next to my white noise machine. Thursday, he destroyed my mailbox with a baseball bat. Security footage showed Karen vandalizing her own mailbox at 2 a.m., apparently forgetting about the neighborhood cameras she'd spent months complaining about. Each false report required police response, investigation, and documentation. Each one created additional criminal charges while officers grew increasingly irritated with Karen's transparent lies. Detective Wilson's voice carried murderous exhaustion after the seventh bogus call. Mrs. Pemberton, filing false police reports is a felony. We have security footage proving your allegations are fabricated. One more bullshit call and you're going to jail. But Karen's desperation had metastasized beyond rational thought. She began following Walter Chen's grandchildren to school, lurking in her BMW like some kind of suburban predator, watching 8-year-olds walk to bus stops. Mrs. Chen called police immediately. There's a strange woman photographing children and taking notes about their schedules. This feels very dangerous. Karen's witness intimidation campaign expanded to vandalizing cars belonging to petition signers. Scratched paint, slashed tires, broken mirrors, thousands of dollars in property damage that security cameras captured in beautiful detail. The smell of spray paint and Karen's perfume lingered around vandalized vehicles like evidence of her complete mental breakdown. She was essentially creating a documentary of her own criminal enterprise while neighbors watched in horrified fascination. Police added witness intimidation, stalking, and property destruction to Karen's growing rap sheet. The woman was accumulating felony charges faster than a Vegas slot machine pays jackpots. Meanwhile, I maintained strategic invisibility like a ghost haunting Karen's nightmares. Every false report was disproven with time-stamped evidence. Every act of vandalism was documented and forwarded to prosecutors. Every desperate move she made tightened the legal noose around her neck. The beauty of patience is watching enemies destroy themselves while you sip coffee and document their self-immolation for future entertainment. But Karen's crown jewel of stupidity was her media manipulation campaign. She contacted Channel 7 News claiming to be a harassment victim, apparently forgetting that investigative reporter Jennifer Walsh had already spent weeks researching Karen's criminal history. I'm being persecuted by a violent neighbor who's trying to steal my property and destroy my family, Karen sobbed into news cameras with the authenticity of a community theater actress auditioning for Lady Macbeth. Walsh's follow-up questions demolished Karen's narrative faster than a controlled building demolition. Mrs. Pemberton, we have audio recordings of you confessing to cutting brake lines and destroying business contracts. How do you explain those statements? Karen's face on television cycling through confusion, rage, and panic became neighborhood entertainment. The interview that was supposed to generate sympathy instead provided prosecutors with additional evidence of Karen's delusional mental state and criminal intent. Social media exploded with neighborhood residents sharing Karen horror stories. The hashtag #KarenPemberton trended locally as families posted photos of fraudulent violations, harassment documentation, and property damage evidence. Karen had become a cautionary tale about HOA abuse while starring in her own public destruction. Week 17 brought Daniel's final break from family loyalty. Karen's son testified before the grand jury, providing prosecutors with insider knowledge of his mother's criminal planning and psychological deterioration. She keeps journals detailing her harassment campaigns. There are plans for escalating violence, including researching how to make attacks look accidental. She's completely lost touch with reality. Daniel's testimony was devastating because it came from someone with intimate knowledge of Karen's psychology and methods. He described years of watching his mother systematically destroy families while justifying her actions as protecting community standards. She genuinely believes she's saving the neighborhood from undesirable elements. In her mind, harassment and violence are justified to preserve property values and social order. The grand jury returned indictments on 23 separate criminal charges: attempted murder, witness tampering, insurance fraud, mail theft, property destruction, stalking, filing false police reports, and organized criminal activity. Karen's bond was set at $250,000 money she couldn't raise after legal fees consumed her liquid assets. She would await trial from county jail, orange jumpsuit replacing designer clothes, metal cot substituting for her king-size bed. The woman who'd terrorized families for decades was finally caged like the dangerous predator she'd always been. Justice tasted like morning coffee mixed with sweet revenge. Week 18 delivered the courtroom showdown that would become neighborhood legend for the next 50 years. The preliminary hearing packed the county courthouse like a heavyweight championship fight. Local TV cameras lined the hallway because Channel 7's investigation had turned Karen into the poster child for HOA corruption. Neighbors filled every seat, treating the proceeding like dinner theater where the villain finally gets her comeuppance. Karen shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, her previous designer perfection replaced by jail-issued humiliation. Dark circles under her eyes, unwashed hair, and the pallor of someone who'd spent 3 weeks contemplating life sentences. The click of her shackles on courtroom tiles sounded like a countdown timer to justice. Judge Patricia Morrison, a no-nonsense veteran who'd seen every type of criminal stupidity, called the packed courtroom to order with a gavel bang that silenced conversations instantly. The state of Colorado versus Karen Elizabeth Pemberton. 23 counts of felony charges, including attempted murder, organized criminal activity, and witness tampering. Prosecutor David Chen Walter's nephew, and someone who'd built his career destroying white-collar criminals, stood to present evidence with the enthusiasm of someone about to detonate a nuclear bomb. Your Honor, this case represents systematic criminal enterprise disguised as neighborhood governance. The defendant used HOA authority to commit theft, harassment, fraud, and attempted murder over an 8-year period. The evidence presentation was devastating and methodical. Security footage showed Karen cutting brake lines with surgical precision. Audio recordings played her confession to multiple felonies while her son wept in the gallery. Financial forensics revealed $30,000 in embezzled funds used to finance harassment campaigns. Property surveys displayed on courtroom monitors showed Karen's deliberate land theft spanning multiple properties. Engineering reports detailed building code violations and environmental damage caused by her illegal construction. Karen's public defender, an overworked attorney who'd drawn the short straw, attempted damage control that resembled trying to stop a tsunami with an umbrella. Your Honor, my client is a devoted community leader who may have made errors in judgment but never intended criminal harm. Judge Morrison's expression suggested she'd heard better defenses from parking ticket violators. The mic drop moment came when Daniel took the witness stand to testify against his own mother. The courtroom fell silent except for Karen's muffled sobbing as her son chose justice over family loyalty. Your Honor, my mother kept detailed journals documenting her harassment campaigns. She researched methods to make violence appear accidental. She genuinely planned to kill Marcus Sullivan and believed she was justified. Daniel's voice carried the weight of someone who'd watched evil masquerade as community service for years. She told me repeatedly that some people don't deserve to live in our neighborhood. She meant anyone who wasn't white, wealthy, or willing to submit to her authority. The gallery gasped as Daniel revealed Karen's racist motivations, systematic targeting of minorities, and escalating violence plans. His testimony transformed the case from neighborhood dispute to hate crime prosecution. Karen's attorney attempted cross-examination, but Daniel's answers were devastating and specific. He produced photographs of Karen's journals, recordings of her planning sessions, and evidence of her psychological deterioration spanning months. Did your mother ever express remorse for her actions? No, Your Honor. She expressed frustration that her victims weren't dying fast enough. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs before Judge Morrison restored order with another gavel slam. Prosecutor Chen delivered closing arguments that sounded like an indictment of systemic HOA abuse nationwide. This defendant weaponized community governance to commit crimes that terrorized families for nearly a decade. She represents everything wrong with unchecked authority in residential communities. The evidence shows premeditated attempted murder, systematic theft, witness intimidation, and organized criminal enterprise. Karen Pemberton isn't a concerned neighbor, she's a domestic terrorist who used HOA power to commit felonies. Judge Morrison's ruling came swift and uncompromising. All criminal charges are bound over for trial. The defendant poses clear danger to community safety and has demonstrated complete disregard for legal authority. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Asset freeze remains in effect to preserve funds for victim compensation. Karen's legs buckled as she realized she'd spend months in jail awaiting trial that would likely result in decades of prison time. Her designer life had ended in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed like locusts covering a natural disaster. I gave a brief statement while neighbors cheered and Karen's victims finally felt safe speaking publicly. This case proves that bullies can't hide behind official authority forever. Karen Pemberton terrorized families for years, but justice finally arrived. No one should have to live in fear of corrupt HOA tyrants. Walter Chen's voice carried satisfaction earned through decades of fighting Karen's tyranny. Today isn't just about Marcus Sullivan's victory, it's about protecting future families from HOA abuse. The crowd outside courthouse resembled a block party celebrating the end of an 8-year reign of terror. Children played safely while parents shared stories of freedom from Karen's psychological warfare. Justice had finally arrived in Willowbrook Estates, wearing a judge's robe and carrying a gavel of accountability. 6 months later, justice delivered its final verdict with the satisfying finality of a perfectly tuned HVAC system clicking into place. Karen received 4 years in state prison plus $180,000 in restitution every penny she'd stolen from HOA funds and property theft. Her house sold at auction to cover legal damages, with surplus funds distributed to her 17 previous victims who'd never received compensation for years of harassment. The sound of the auctioneer's hammer falling on Karen's former palace was sweeter than Christmas morning. New owners immediately demolished her illegal driveway, restoring my property line with a beautiful privacy fence that clicked satisfyingly shut every time I locked the gate where her stolen pavement used to exist. Daniel enrolled at Colorado State studying criminal justice, funded by the Second Chance Scholarship I established with book royalties and speaking fees. The kid who'd chosen moral courage over family loyalty deserved every opportunity to build a life dedicated to protecting others from bullies like his mother. Mr. Sullivan, I can't thank you enough for helping me find the strength to do the right thing, Daniel said during our last coffee meeting before he left for college. My mom's victims deserve justice, and you showed me how to fight for it. Willowbrook Estates transformed into the peaceful community it was always meant to be. New HOA leadership implemented radical transparency with monthly financial reports, open meetings, and democratic decision-making. Harassment prevention policies protected all residents regardless of race, income, or family structure. Property values increased 12% due to improved community harmony. Neighbors actually talk to each other now, hosting block parties and organizing youth sports leagues. The smell of barbecue smoke and children's laughter replaced the tension that had poisoned our streets for 8 years. My business thrived beyond expectations. Clients respected the integrity I'd demonstrated during the Karen crisis, leading to contract expansions and referral networks throughout the region. I hired 3 additional technicians and opened a second location, proving that standing up to bullies often improves professional reputation rather than destroying it. The golden rule I learned: bullies count on victims staying silent, but communities rally around those brave enough to fight back publicly. My YouTube channel, Fighting HOA Bullies, reached 500,000 subscribers, helping victims nationwide document harassment and pursue legal remedies. Every week brought messages from families who'd used my strategies to defeat their own neighborhood tyrants. Thank you for showing us that HOA bullies aren't invincible, wrote Sarah from Phoenix. We followed your documentation methods, and our Karen is now facing criminal charges. Speaking engagements took me across the country, teaching communities how to recognize, document, and prosecute HOA abuse. State legislators consulted my testimony while drafting Karen's Law comprehensive HOA reform requiring financial audits, term limits, and recall procedures. The ripple effects reached beyond individual victories. County implemented HOA oversight requirements, mandatory transparency measures, and abuse prevention protocols. Other municipalities adopted similar reforms, creating systemic change that would protect thousands of future families. Sophia and I grew closer through adversity, our relationship strengthened by watching justice prevail over intimidation. She learned valuable lessons about standing up to bullies, documenting evidence, and building community support. My daughter now volunteers with the Scholarship Fund, mentoring young people who face difficult moral decisions. Sunday morning coffee with Walter became tradition, Two veterans sharing stories about defeating enemies through patience, preparation, and community solidarity. His weathered hands remained steady as he turned newspaper pages reporting another HOA reform victory in neighboring counties. "Son, you didn't just beat Karen," Walter said during our final conversation before his family moved to Florida. "You changed how communities handle bullies forever." The annual Willowbrook Unity Festival celebrates diversity and community cooperation, featuring food trucks, live music, and educational booths about resident rights. Former Karen victims now serve as HOA board members, ensuring accountability prevents future tyranny. My back deck became the perfect spot for evening reflection, overlooking the fence that marked my restored property boundaries. The gate's solid click reminded me daily that justice requires vigilance but rewards courage with lasting peace. The documentary Neighborhood Tyrant won a regional Emmy, bringing national attention to HOA reform while establishing legal precedents protecting residents from harassment. Karen's story became a textbook example of how unchecked authority corrupts absolutely. Drop a comment sharing your own HOA nightmare story. Let's build a community of people who refuse to be intimidated by petty tyrants. Hit subscribe for more David versus Goliath victories, where justice prevails and bullies face consequences. Next week, how I used HOA rules against the HOA itself. Another story of turning bureaucracy into beautiful revenge. Remember, your property, your rights, your community, defend them all.